I'll tell you what, in 2023, you and I will run for president and vice president. We'll flip a coin to see who gets what, and we'll fix it all, right?
Sounds good.
Make it perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Robin Lindsay.
Every, all the problems will be quickly fixed.
If you had to pick one, would you be El Presidente or El Vice Presidente?
I'm a good assister. I'll pass you the ball and you dunk.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is we're both going to be fighting for who gets to be vice president.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Loser takes president.
Welcome to the 42 Podcast, where we discuss life together, looking for answers to life, the universe, and, well, everything else. Here are your hosts, Rob and Lindsay.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Lindsay. You went away. Where'd you go?
Did I go away?
You didn't, but I pushed the wrong button on my computer and now I can't see you.
Well, stop pushing buttons.
We had to record. Seriously, where'd you go? I don't know. It might just be me talking to you. I don't get to see you this one.
Weird.
Yeah, so I am using an entirely different setup today.
Yeah, you had to swim here, didn't you? Swim to your
Well,
studio.
yeah, thankfully the waters went down, but we have a basement to clean out, and that's never fun or easy or nice.
So lots of stuff got ruined?
No, lots of stuff didn't get ruined, thankfully. Some things got wet. Like my camping stuff is all out in the backyard, spread out everywhere right now, drying. That stuff always gets wet, but you don't want it to be soaking, so that's sitting out in the backyard, and yeah, it is what it is.
Mm. So, my son Toby, his project this week for fun was digging a hole past the tree line at our house. So there's all these it's brush. It's all in a bunch of brush, and he wanted to dig a hole for some reason. I think originally it was to bury treasure, but then it just sort of became wow, this is a big hole. How much deeper can I get it? So yesterday, all four of them were back there. Miles was barefoot, and my mother-in-law came home, and she's like, yeah, there's poison ivy all throughout there. Of course, I had just bought Toby and Maggie brand new shoes.
Oh.
And so they had to soak in, I guess, some kind of special soap. I think it's called Technu or something. We had to strip them all down and rub them with Technu, give them Technu rub downs and then hose them off and then give them a shower. It was ridiculous end to the day yesterday.
Oh, but that will be one of those memories that they'll have of, hey, remember that time we dug a hole in the backyard? And the hole will, in their perspective, always be 30 feet deep.
Yep.
And then got poison ivy.
Yeah.
But that's
just
that's part of the fun of it. My kids are griping, but they'll also remember cleaning out the basement and the adventures we tried to make of.
It's all that kind of stuff that you tell stories about at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm. It is. So it's neat being parents on that end of things.
Yeah. But it was a good first week of school for me, homeschooling. And I thought I had really scheduled a hard week, a big workload for Toby, but we were done before 12 every day. So it was a good week.
Hey, that just means that you got to step it up more. He needs a bigger challenge.
I think so.
We keep finding that with Ray, where we're like, all right, this is going to challenge. No, never mind.
Yeah, he surprises me.
Yeah, you just got to add another layer to it, and that's okay. That's, you're learning with your kids.
Yeah.
So.
I'm making him look words up in the dictionary. With the actual dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
So like I make him look up 3 words a day because he's reading this Bible, and it's a little meaty for him as far as the text, but it's like in a graphic novel form. So I figure whatever. At least he's looking at the pictures and he is reading the words, and you think he's understanding what he's reading. But I'm making him look up 3 words a day anyway, and it's been really fun making him do that.
Actually, that is a pretty neat idea. You need to develop that into, he needs to find 3 words a day and then develop a short story around them
Ooh,
or incorporate them. So, which is also funny because right before we started recording, you reminded me that you have been being a productive podcaster with the challenge I threw out a couple episodes back of, hey, we should each write a short story.
yeah. I haven't really thought about it in a couple weeks, but I had some fresh vigor this morning about it, and I kept going with it. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting, actually. I've never written anything like it, so it's fun.
Yeah, I've got the plot, the idea, I just haven't put anything down on paper yet. But one other thing we should probably cover, Melinda just texted me,
Hmm.
and I'll show you my screen. She texted me that.
Robert Cochran on TikTok.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok,
Hmm.
and I've been posting videos for the 42 podcast of when we're recording what we're talking about, promoing. So you can follow me on TikTok, and I give little updates when we record. I'm going to try and do more of, hey, the episode came out, stuff like that.
I am such an old lady when it comes to TikTok. I have no idea. Like, I know it's videos, but I don't get how it's different from YouTube or why you'd want to do that.
It's short videos. It's like the Twitter of YouTube.
Hmm.
But then on top of that, we also did something else this week with the 42.
We did?
We did. You're doing that whispery again.
Oh, yeah, we did. We did. That's right.
We did. There it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Hey, Alexa, play the 42 podcast. We're now on Amazon Music.
Did she listen?
Well, she's not in my house.
Oh,
She's in my house. She's not in my office.
well,
But
you're
now anyone who's listening to us and doesn't have a headpiece in is going, what? Why is Alexa yelling at me?
Okay, now I get it. Yes. Yes.
To be perfectly honest, when there have been like TV commercials or things like that that intentionally trigger those devices, I've always been mad. And now here I am in a podcast doing it.
Do you have Hulu?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen the show The Looming Tower?
No, I have not.
Okay. I might get Hulu just to watch that and then like unplug Hulu again. It's also a book, and I read it probably 7 years ago now, and it's about basically the trail leading to the Twin Towers falling. And it was a really good book. It was very well written, and I learned a ton, and it was readable. And I'm wondering how that book would compute to a show, though, because it wasn't fiction or historical fiction even. It was just sort of investigative journalisming,
Yeah.
to quote Ben Shapiro. But anyway, it was very good. I recommend it. The book, anyway.
I'll have to check that out. Well, the book and show. Yeah, we're talking about that today, aren't we?
Yeah. It's been on my mind anyway, like Afghanistan in general has been on my mind a lot.
Well, Afghanistan, that episode for us came out 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, lots happened since then.
Yeah. But it's also going to be the 20-year, you and I are recording a week before, but it's going to be the 20-year anniversary on the 11th of 9/11. And it's... How old were you when 9/11 happened?
I was 14. And I was in the cafeteria at school.
Freshman or 8th grade?
I think I was a freshman. I was a freshman because I remember my English teacher saying that they were going to read Alas Babylon that year, and he changed his mind because it was a little too on the nose for what was going on. So, of course, I went and read it.
For me, not anything to do with 9/11 directly, but when I try to peg ages and grade levels, I always struggle because I was I was that guy who last day of freshman year of high school, I rode my motorcycle to school. I was 16 freshman year.
Oh, yep. Yep.
So I always screw ages up when I try to figure out grades and levels. So I was a sophomore. I was 16 when 9/11 happened. You said you were in the cafeteria?
Yep, I was in the cafeteria and they didn't let us leave the cafeteria. Like we were stuck, which was like we couldn't go to our next class because they were worried about something bad happening. I didn't understand at the time. In the ensuing days, we learned that the secretary at my school, her son, called her from the towers to basically say goodbye to her. Like he died in the Twin Towers, and it was really heartbreaking. I mean, it was so intense. It was so intense emotionally.
Yeah, that's and there are stories like that to this day that still come up that are they're heartbreaking.
Yeah, chilling. They're really chilling.
I actually have a degree of regret with kind of my first response to that day.
Mm-hmm.
I screwed it up. Is the only way to phrase that. Where my morning started, and the first class I had in the morning was gym class. So we had gym class, and while I was in gym class, there was no TV, there was no nothing. We had no idea what was going on. Got out of gym class, the first tower had already been hit, so people were starting to get an idea of what was going on. And I was trying to look up the timeline. I think the Pentagon had already been hit as well by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking to my next class, which was English, and this guy on the wrestling team, his name was Don. He came up next to me, and he was a great big goofball. He seemed a little extra somber, and I thought he was just trying to pull a fast one.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Dude, we've been hit. Someone flew a plane into the World Trade Center, and someone flew a plane into the Pentagon." And he was one who was always joking with stuff, and I thought he was pulling my leg, and I laughed. I said, "Yeah, sure, Don, we deserve it. Good luck for us."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking away from that and then walking into my English class. The TV was on, and I walked in and saw that, and I just went, "Oh,
yeah."
I had no idea that, you know, the first set of attacks happened while I was in gym class, and word was beginning to go through the school, and I was out in Western PA, so this is happening, and we're having whispers then shortly after this that, well, there's another plane, and it's somewhere here in Western PA.
Wow. Yep.
And the school I was in, a lot of our families, a lot of the students, their families worked for U.S. Airways out at Pittsburgh Airport. Flight crew, pilots, ground crew. So this whole thing just became a huge whisper of, was it a plane that took off from Pittsburgh? Is it a plane headed to Pittsburgh? What's going on? Details of that day, we knew what happened with the World Trade Centers pretty quick. We knew what happened with the Pentagon pretty quick. But Flight 93, the details were slower. At least for us, it felt like they were slower because it was, is this something that was our community? And I just remember sitting and walking through that day, and it felt like everyone in school was just numb. That they didn't know how to even begin to cope with what we kept speculating and hearing.
Yeah. And it felt like,
yeah,
is this the end of America? Like, what's going to happen now? It was really scary.
It was. It really was. And, well, and the confusion, the quiet that came out of 9/11 is one of the most, there's a piece to it I can explain that a little bit more, but there was also a deep underlying disturbing to it. And again, living in the Pittsburgh area, living where I did, you would constantly hear planes over at Pittsburgh International Airport taking off and flying over. I mean, it was a constant for our community, something you got used to. But I remember standing out on my back porch day after when they grounded everything and the silence.
Wow.
No planes, no takeoffs, no landings. It was quiet.
That's eerie.
Yeah, it really was. But then there was a peace that settles in, that kind of, okay, this has happened, and you start making that peace of, well, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for our nation? And people turning towards their faith, turning towards asking questions of where's their comfort? How do we comfort each other? How do we, yeah.
Yeah, that was my impression, was people were talking about God a lot more. People were flying the American flag a heck of a lot more. People were enlisting a lot. But I remember not really understanding and I got confused between Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, and I didn't really understand what was going on. But I didn't really look into it either at the time. I just listened to people. I didn't really listen to the news. I didn't do that. It was really only until the last 10 years or so that I started to look into it myself and like, okay, well, what actually did happen and what did George Bush do? And is it good or is it bad? Or, trying to parcel out all that stuff.
See, I started asking questions pretty quick. Who and the what and the hows of everything that was going on with this. What is this? I guess it was maybe the age I was at, because that's 2 years away from military service, so it's something I was watching with. Okay, we're deploying troops. We're having these military actions. We've declared a war on terrorism.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've shared this story before or not, but there was a point where I was pretty gung-ho and I wanted to join the Marines, and I had every intention of it.
Yeah, and your mom.
But every time I tried to talk to a recruiter, my mother was hanging up on them time after time, and she was right to do it because it was not the path that was for me. But I don't know. I was keyed into it. I was following what we were doing, and who Osama was, and oh well, wait a minute, this Osama character, we actually have history with him, and that history goes back to the 80s and the Soviets. At the same time, my father is a history buff, so he was keyed into some of this, and we would talk. My youth pastor back then, when the invasion in Afghanistan began, I remember going out to breakfast with him at a little diner shop, and we sat down. He talked through some of the problems they were having in the invasion, with how Afghanistan is as a country, with it being a mountain desert. Why we're invading, what does that look like? What some of the spiritual implications of war are. For the men and women going out, fighting, coming home, is war right in and of itself?
What is America's role in the global scheme of things?
Yeah, and I was keyed into those conversations in the early 2000s, up until probably about 2003, 2004, somewhere in there, where it was something I followed closely. But so for you though, you started diving into it more 10 years later.
Yeah. Yep.
Any specific reason behind the kind of pause in time, or?
I guess it just sort of felt like an overwhelming topic. And, I wasn't I don't recall being very internet savvy at the time, or really listening to talk radio. I didn't read the news. I just sort of listened to what the adults said or listened to the conversation in class, and I just didn't occur to me to look into it more. I don't know why. But it didn't at the time. I guess I was just more interested in, I don't know, other stuff.
Being a teenager.
Yeah.
So a weird point that happened for me 10 years, a little over 10 years later, it's happened a couple different times where at that point, 10 years on, I had my kid, Ray. I was in full-time youth ministry. And one of my students it was right around the anniversary, they made a joke about 9/11. And it was one of those dark humor jokes, and I remember standing there, and I'm standing there reflecting on everything I felt that day, everything I felt in that time frame. But for him, he was like 3 or 4 when the attacks happened. And dark humor was part of how he processed. But I remember standing there and feeling a little bit disturbed, a little bit frustrated that this is a very real and hard day across the country. Now, those dark humor and memes and conspiracy theories exist and remain, and that's part of how some people have processed, coped, or tried to understand what is really a complex day in our history. What have you thought and felt with stuff like that when you've encountered it?
I usually react with kind of disgust. I have pretty strong reactions. I just don't see. I get foxhole humor, like it's how you survive. So I get coping like that, but to me it's disrespectful of the dead, and so yeah, I've never really gotten or found that stuff funny, ever. But yeah.
Yeah, it was hard navigating that moment, trying to set aside my immediate reactions, but that was a weird moment. Another weird moment was the first time I had a student who was born after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the anniversary comes up, and all the stuff with 9/11, people start talking about and remembering and reflecting. And the student asked some good, honest questions about that day. And I was about to ask, well, where were you? Oh, wait, you weren't born. Which made my mind just melt, because it's okay, well, wait a minute. There's this hinging point that at this time, it was like the halfway point of my life, where it's halfway in my life, everything in this country changed.
Yeah.
To a degree, the innocence of youth kind of left, or the final aspects of it with...
People hate Americans? People hate us? Why would people hate us? You know, that was a
that
first.
One I knew. That one was already there, where it's okay, people hate us. I get that. But it was, people are willing to kill civilians, not military targets. There was one military target of the 3 targets that day. One. They're willing to kill to make a very big and loud statement.
Mm.
And it was sitting with that where it's, okay, yeah.
Hello there. I'm interrupting this podcast, not to tell you anything per se, but to thank you for listening to the 42 podcast and being a part of the experience. Here at the 42, Rob and I love to hear from our listeners and are always excited to hear suggestions, feedback, and comments. If you want to participate, there are a few ways you can do so. You can support us by rating and reviewing the show, and of course recommending us to your friends, family, bank teller, car mechanic, whomever. Do you have something in particular that you'd like us to discuss? Or maybe you'd like to actually be on the show to discuss a particular thing, or set us straight about something we got wrong or didn't fully suss out to your satisfaction. You can email us at badtheologyproductions@gmail.com. I really appreciate your taking the time to include us in your busy day. I've been doing a lot of reading about the history of things since 9/11. And I read that maybe it was a mistake for Bush to declare a war on terror in a broad sense, because that's something that can never really be defeated. You know, it's a receding goal. So I think people in America lost track of what was actually happening. Instead of saying, this is a very specific thing we are doing. We are going in to try to destroy Al-Qaeda and capture Osama. That's our goal. And then it sort of morphed into something else. And I think people didn't understand that it was a very specific goal. And it wasn't just fighting terror globally all around the world just because. And I wonder what would have happened if it had been very specific. And if we hadn't started, I don't know, what would have happened if we didn't nation build as well? Or could we have gone in there and done what we did and not nation build and not help them create a democracy? And was that foolish to begin with, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities to all of that because, I mean, when those terror attacks happened, Osama bin Laden was pretty quick on claiming those. I think it was within that first week, and I'm going off of memory without looking it up. I think it was within that first week we had an idea that it was Osama and Al-Qaeda, and the idea that a terrorist organization could strike us at home in that big a manner was new. You know, them getting effectively sleeper cells over here that trained to do that attack. And I think that terror is why we had that very broad, you know, we're going to declare war on terrorism, which it doesn't work because there will always be terrorism.
Yeah.
As a young, it kind of fits, but as a young youth director, I tried to make the best impressions I could with people and try to get it so that everyone would like me and like the programs I was doing and like the ministry. But as I've gotten older, I've come to understand that no, not everyone's going to like me or the program or what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And out of that, you know, you get negative feedback. Negative feedback can be good, but I think that's where the problem was, is we still wanted to be in this state where we're going to make everybody kind of like us, or we're going to be the best, and we made a broad statement that then fits into that mentality of we're going to make everybody like us because we're going to fight terrorism and win it. But terrorism is such a broad thing. Someone will always hate you or hate your country or hate your ideals.
Yeah.
Rational or irrational, a country or individual, it's always going to be.
Yep.
It's just, how do we, instead of, you know, killing each other and creating mini wars or proxy wars, how do we maybe instead create dialogue, not for the purpose of, hey, we're going to be best friends, but is there something better or more constructive we can do? And that's diplomatic and weird, and yeah.
How do we get you to stop hurting people without hurting a lot of your people in the process?
Right. And that goes into nation building, and that goes into, you know, what are our objectives in doing things like invading other countries or supporting or giving money and finance. It's complex.
It is.
I'll tell you what. Here we go. In 2023, you and I will run for president and vice president. We'll flip a coin to see who gets what, and we'll fix it all, right?
Sounds good.
Make it perfect.
Yeah.
Rob and Lindsay.
All the problems will be quickly fixed.
Exactly. If you had to pick one, would you be El Presidente or El Vice Presidente?
I'm a good assister. I'll pass you the ball and you dunk.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is we're both going to be fighting for who gets to be vice president.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I would
Loser takes president.
I'm trying to raise my son as if he will be president, but I don't want to be president.
Yeah, I've thought about that, but I can't, get that low in the gutter to raise my kids.
Huh? Sorry, I didn't
I
get it.
made a bad joke. I'm saying all politicians are horrible people.
Oh,
I can't
yeah,
get that
okay.
low in the gutter to raise my,
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
never
I'm sorry.
mind,
I'm sorry. I'm
fine.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just.
Nah. But no, I mean, that is true. I mean, you said it with, I would never want that job. And, we're 20 years on Sunday quarterbacking or armchair quarterbacking the presidential decisions from Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. They've got tougher decisions and jobs, and we're looking at news organizations that are releasing information, but how much of what do the alphabet soup organizations that don't exist do exist know, and what reports and intelligence has been gathered. And
What do you think about the Department of Homeland Security and that creating that? Do you approve? Disapprove?
that's complicated. That really is. So that was originally headed up by Tom Ridge, who was the former governor of Pennsylvania. And I didn't mind Ridge, but also my engagement with politics at that point was a little innocent and naive. I would say my engagement with politics was fairly innocent and naive up until 2012-ish, maybe even 16, maybe 2020 as well. But, that's part of who we all are as we grow. The original premise of Homeland Security, I did not disagree with in trying to get all those alphabet soup organizations, the CIA, NSA, FBI,
To work together?
ICE, and everyone else who, they've got their little fiefdoms and they've got their little intelligence reports and, mine. And, if ICE had maybe given a report that showed that, hey, we have a few interesting characters who have crossed the border and are learning to take flights. So the original premise of we're going to try and get everybody to talk to each other, to sit down at the table, and so what do we got going on?
Yeah.
That's not bad, but things that have come out of it, like the Patriot Act, which isn't bad, it's not good either. It's
a box that contains possibly really, really bad things.
lots of really, really bad things. The intention of, okay, we're going to try and make sure this never happens again, okay, that's a good thing, but maybe we're using the wrong tools to do that.
Yeah.
With some of the potentials it allows for the government to spy on its citizens, to monitor, or the one that has always entertained me and I've gotten a kick out of is the no-fly list. That to get any kind of information on that and understand what's going on with, well, wait a minute, why is this individual on the no-fly list? Can I get off of the no-fly list? How did I get here to begin with? And there have been famous examples over the year, like I think it was Ted Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, who was on the no-fly list. And every time he flew anywhere, he had to go through a bunch of different hurdles. This is a senator. And it was when he was an active senator. And now I want to confirm that. I think it was Ted Kennedy.
I think the thing that I really dislike about the Patriot Act is how they get to define who a terrorist is, who is dangerous. They get to define that. People sling around the word terrorist a lot. And sometimes for people that, actually, didn't I read that people that don't want to wear masks, they're terrorists. I saw that on the news. I can't remember where. So the fact that the word terror and who's dangerous to society is so fluid, that makes me nervous, because now anybody could be potentially listened to or eavesdropped on or spied on, like Tucker Carlson or whoever. And I think that's very, very Orwellian.
It's not very Orwellian. That's not. If you go back through history, it happens all the time. We create, depending on who's in power, depending on who's got the loudest voice, we always create these group of others who don't align politically or who are deemed an undesirable or deemed a concern. 50s, 60s, 70s, we had McCarthyism and the Red Scare. I think it was called the Red Scare. And,
Yep.
how many people you watched your neighbors to make sure they weren't communist sympathizers.
Yep.
Hollywood, everyone in Hollywood was suspect to being a communist sympathizer. And, we had slang terms for these people who may have been. We had means of isolating and marginalizing them. And you didn't have to be someone who truly aligned with communism. You just
had to be mentioned.
You had to be suspected of it. Right. And in a lot of ways, we do that same thing now. Look at the tensions we're dealing with.
Well, isn't that what cancel culture is, kind of?
Partially, that's what cancel culture is. That's what conservatives are trying to claim victim status with different things. The liberals are trying to claim their own victim status or their own, I'm blanking on what the word I want to use is, but everyone is trying to show that they're the one being victimized. They're the one that this other group is terrorizing, is, intentionally attacking. And there are intentional attacks. I'm not saying any of this to dismiss what's happening on either side. There are intentional malicious activities happening to both sides. But it's just, the thing that we continue to try and do, and it's history, it keeps going back and forth, is we try to say, you are wronging me. To make it right, I have to have power and suppress you. All right, you're thinking. I want to know what you're thinking.
I just don't know if I 100% agree, but I mean, yeah, isn't that why we're nervous? Because kind of what I originally said was the Patriot Act makes me nervous because anybody can say anybody's a terrorist and get on a list.
Exactly.
That's all I meant.
Well, no, and that's exactly it. Sorry, I went maybe a level or two deeper of saying everyone's fighting for this power of being the one to be able to say they're the problem. Pick a side. They're the problem. So I should be the one in power. I should be the one who makes it right with my ideals.
Who is saying that now?
Everyone. So how I view this time right now, what the age we live in, it's a toss-up. It really is. I mean, if you look at our political spectrum and division right now, you have the conservatives who are claiming their own set of victimhoods. You have the liberals who are claiming their own set of victimhoods, and we have this line in the sand of tension that only nudges an inch or so each way. No one has, the true final power. It's tension.
I would argue whoever owns the media has the power. Whoever controls the press has the power.
I would disagree with you. I really would, because anyone, and you and I can even look at this a little bit from our example of anyone can get in front of a microphone and a camera and reach hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. Anyone can be a level of journalist. So I think where the power and tension really lies is within social media.
Well, I disagree. I think social media is exactly what's made social media and YouTube and things has inflated the person in front of the camera to where you don't believe anything. Anybody could say anything, and you could be like, that's interesting. But the people behind MSNBC, the people behind CNN, the people behind Fox, they have power, and people are more likely to believe things they say or simply contrast things they say with other things.
But wait, look at all the people that are injecting themselves right now with ivermectin or iva. Have you heard this one?
Is it a COVID thing?
Yeah. Let me get the name. It's a deworming thing for ivermectin.
Okay.
Okay. It's used to deworm cows and horses. And it's not like a big thing, but some people have been using it and injecting it or consuming it, however you would use it, to treat COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But they're using the livestock version.
Okay.
Enough that the FDA put out some information on it, and some states are saying, look, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, knock it off, you're going to make yourselves worse.
Right.
And one of the people who was an advocate for this was Joe Rogan, big podcaster, big individual. He got COVID like a week or two ago, and then he even said about how he treated himself with this. And so, yeah, there is this level of skepticism that we should have, this level of, well, anyone can put any kind of information out there, but that skepticism doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be functioning that way, where information's getting put out there on social media and people are consuming it saying, hey, no, this works.
Okay.
And that's where I'm a little bit skeptical, because it's, well, there are enough people on social media who are, fighting back with misinformation or true information. And I look at it, I don't think it's the media who has the power. I think it's social media. And I'm not saying, Mark Zuckerberg, lizard person, is sitting there and manipulating and guiding everything. I think it's the individuals on social media and the fact that everyone has a really loud voice right now and is creating echo chambers of affirmation in their groups that are only building.
Hmm.
Do we disagree?
Yeah, I think it's misleading. It's misleading. Not you. You are not being misleading, but like the way the media and social media works is we don't know who's listening. They make you think that tons and tons, like the entire country has this opinion. The entire country, most of the country, in fact, don't we speak for everyone? That's how they speak, as if everybody should share their ideas, or like assuming that everybody does share their ideas. But I don't think that's the case. I guess the only way to tell, really, is voting. What it looks like when people vote. I'm not sure that social media would have any great cast a shadow on media. That's just I don't see that. Like it's the first time. That's the first thing I've heard of what you just said. Like I've never heard of that, of people doing that, and I'm fairly well read. So you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
So I was watching, I don't remember which news show it was the other day. I'd have to look it up to find it. But I was watching the news, and I was blown away because the news channel that this was on has incorporated a section into their daily broadcast or weekly broadcast of TikTok.
Like funny things on TikTok?
or serious things on TikTok. It just kind of depending on where they were at. And so they were showing these clips of TikTok, and I'm like, tell me that that's not social media invading the mainstream media. Where the mainstream media is now going and leaning on and pulling from social media. Because, again, everyone has, and this is why I lean on the social media. Everyone has one of these little black box devices with a camera and a screen and a microphone, and all we need to do is be in the right place at the right time and hold our phones up and hit record. And suddenly you're viral. Suddenly you've found a wild Karen. Suddenly you've been in the middle of a hurricane flood, and hey, look, I'm being swept away, and now you're part of this news cycle. That's not just the mainstream news, but social media news. That is the loudest voice of people. And I guess that's why I kind of look at social media and say that's the biggest changes. That's the biggest source of information, misinformation, and influence.
But then where's all the accounts on the ground from Kabul then? Like, how come there's not a lot more footage? How come there's not tons of footage flooding the internet of these things happening, and we just get like a dozen or half a dozen different things, and those things end up shown on the media over and over and over again? But like, I wanted to find, not to be morbid or macabre, but I wanted to see for myself. So I just think it would be even more prevalent than it is if that were the case and it was that easy. But I think social media is controlled by corporations who are controlled by the media, or vice versa. And then over that, you have money.
Well, you do. And you have algorithms that suppress. There's a algorithm on YouTube that is a pain to some people. That is, you have this algorithm that suppresses or advances things based on what the people do. You have, okay, so videos from Kabul and from Afghanistan with the retreat. There's a part of me that wonders if there's not an algorithm out there that's suppressing that, because do you think that would play well for the politics of America right now if it's showing?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly dead on what I'm saying. That's why social media is not in control. The media and the powers that be behind the media, probably corporations, they are the ones that are really in control. Social media is a tool, but the media is the guy. It's like social media is the gun in the holster, but there's somebody holding the holster.
There is, and I'm not disagreeing with there's someone that is on the other end of this. I don't know who it is, and I don't want to be, all shadowy, spooky, but there is someone on the other end of these algorithms, whether it's an AI or a person or an alphabet soup organization. But social media is a means of manipulation.
I agree.
And I think it's more powerful than the news. I really do, because the news is a source, but social media is a voice. Social media is a voice with action, because you can hit the like button on that, and that like button gives feedback and feeds an algorithm.
And you can figure out, okay, well, who else has seen this video? How many people have seen this video? How many people like? How many people love? How many people have shared it? Wow, this is, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying there. I get what you're saying.
So when you and I started this podcast, do you remember what we would say at the end of every podcast?
Are we still friends?
Are we still friends? Because we would have a lot more heated argument and discussion, and we were in different positions, and we still are in some ways. I'm more liberal than you, and you're more conservative than me, and provides weird moments like this where we're going back and forth, we're bouncing ideas, we're having a discussion. And in that discussion, I feel like we grow, you and I individually. Mm-hmm. But then the flip side is we're having a greater discussion with a greater audience. And, Kyle, last week, we're bringing people in and having discussions. If you want to join us in a discussion with this, please do, please, because they don't care where you're at in it. Come in, learn with us, talk with us, because a discussion is more valuable, and in that we grow. In that we understand, in that we are able to navigate what is life. We keep having a series on these, what it is to be human in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
But that's what you and I have tried to do, because it's okay. There's contention between us, but we still have a lot of respect for each other. So in that respect, we have a discussion. And at the end of that discussion, we may not agree. We may not have ever come to a mutual understanding, but we can sit down and say, hey, I respect you. I love you. We're still friends. To me, that is more valuable than finding a group of like-minded individuals who will be in perfect sync with me. But that's what social media creates, is this, we have found someone who is exactly like you. Would you like to know them more? No, I know me. I don't like me.
Yeah. Hey, this is related. I've been doing a lot of research on Afghanistan the last several weeks. Did I tell you the story already about my Instagram friend? So I was doing a ton of research on the internet, YouTube, everywhere I could because I wanted to hear what was happening in Afghanistan. And interestingly, I received a message, like a friend request message from somebody who claimed to be a soldier in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Which is strange, considering the population of the earth and what I'm studying, and this guy is in Afghanistan, a soldier in Afghanistan. He's got like 4 pictures on his Instagram thing, his feed. Okay, so anyway, it turns out he just was wanting to be weird, you know, the sex. He just wanted to sext me. So I was like, I was trying to ask him about books and stuff, and he just, I could, you know, he just didn't want to talk about any of that. I ignored him, deleted him, whatever. And this is still something that I'm researching coming up in my feed. Somebody else texted me who happens to be living in Kabul right now. In Kabul.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're texting me and asking me to help them get out of Afghanistan, and also asking me to educate him in these sexual ways of the Western world because he wants to come to America and he needs to. Anyway, so the fact that both of these people are from Afghanistan, and I've been researching this so extensively, I just feel like it's not an accident, but I don't get how it works because I'm in Instagram. It's not even Facebook. It's not like I've been searching for it or looking around in Facebook. It's Google that I'm looking at. So isn't that creepy? Isn't that weird?
You do know Facebook owns Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And Facebook tracks every piece of data that they can get on you, including your Google searches.
Okay.
Yeah. Facebook is the overlord, or they want to be.
That's freaky.
And also that they can make a better personalized ad for you and sell your data in batches to marketing companies who are then going to target you with things that they think you're sympathetic towards. Because we had a conversation on this a while ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We had a social media episode.
Yeah, and that's part of what's happening. The other part of it is there are scam accounts everywhere. A couple weeks back, it was a headache, but a couple weeks back here at the church, there was an email sent out from the pastor of the church. That was, it was sent to a handful of congregation members who, you know, got this email and it said, "Hey, I'm in a meeting. Can you help me?" From the pastor's account. And it had our pastor's picture, you know, in the little Gmail window that shows the picture of the person. And when I was shown this, it wasn't the pastor's account that we use here at the office. The picture was pulled directly off of our website. And we don't know how they got our church email list, but they did. And they were trying to scam members of, you know, when you replied, they said, "Hey, can you purchase gift cards for me? Because I need to give them too." And, you know, enough people called the church directly and said, "Hey, there's somebody spoofing the pastor's account." So we went through and we redid some of our security and email passwords and all of that fun stuff. And even looking at, okay, how'd our email address list get sent out, or where'd the compromise happen, or how, you know, all of that. But there's always someone out there who's trying to scam you. There's always someone, and it's not off topic, but I mean, there's always someone who wants to take advantage.
Yeah.
And whether it's the crisis that we're in or not, whether it's, you know, somehow they got information of what you have been searching and sympathetic to right now that they may be able to exploit. And this historically happens anytime there's a crisis where, you know, I'll give money to this organization that will help. And that's not really an organization. That's someone who just scammed you out of money thinking that you're helping people in a crisis. It happened with Haiti. It's happened with Katrina. It's happened with any major crisis. It's going to happen with Kabul.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm always leery about social media, who connects with me. And I say this in full respect, knowing that people are starting to connect with the 42 podcast with, we've said my full name, and people have found my Facebook, my Instagram, and now my TikTok with my full name. And I'm always leery. Like, I have a friend request sitting in Facebook right now that's, hey, we don't know you. Maybe you are a listener, maybe you're not, but I'm cautious.
Yeah. I like to try to trick people. I mean, not other people, but when people message me and I don't know them, I know they're creepers, but I just want to see where the conversation goes before they jump to that, because I know they're going to get there eventually. It's just a matter of time. So, like, I like to ask them, what book are you reading right now? And they never want to talk about books. That's a tip-off.
I never engage with that. I have a level of paranoia with engaging with people on the internet. Like, even talking with my father, he loves those calls that come in. We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. He loves those calls because he sits there and he has fun with them, and he lifts off a car that's ancient. He's like, oh yeah, I guess it's been like 30 years. Can you extend the warranty for my 1980s Dodge, whatever? No, do you have another vehicle? Well, you called me about my vehicle. Why? He screws with them. I don't even do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I pick up and I'll give a stupid accent when I'm saying hello.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick something Russian, Scottish, whatever. My horrible versions of accents. And that's about it. And then I hang up on them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I need to do that some more. Of just start screwing around with the scammers. Wow, we went, we got to a weird spot at the end of this again.
It was very educational, though, I found.
It's interesting.
I'm sure people are going to make fun of me for my naivety. I can't even say the word.
Your ability to teach the Western versions of... I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah. Like, well, if you're really in Kabul and Taliban is, like, going door to door looking for your sisters that you claim to have, why the heck are you upstairs in your bedroom asking me weird questions like that? Don't you have better things to think about? Don't you have another, I don't know, problem? And sometimes he speaks really broken English, and other times he doesn't. So that's the way I don't...
You're probably dealing with multiple people. There's, I'll have to find the videos and send you. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, I follow him on YouTube, who has gone through and, like, hacked the scammers. And he did this whole big sting with a scammer in India and uncovered it. I'll have to send you the videos because they are gold to watch. Like,
Okay.
he got into their security cameras.
Nice.
And he was able to see who was calling him and when and what they were looking at on their computer. It's gold. I'll have to find the video and send it to you. I'll post it in the oh my goodness, what's the thing we put at the bottom? Show notes. I think his name is Jim Brown. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll have to look that up and send it. I guess maybe we need to do an episode dedicated to scammers, and we'd like to talk to you about your extended warranty.
Yeah.
That could actually be a really fun one. All right. I've got a basement to get back to and clean up. Well, it's been good talking to you, Lindsay.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.